Hey guys, so today I want to talk about a new piece of hi-fi audio equipment that I just got. So this is the Technics SA-C600. It is a combination amplifier, network player, wireless streamer, CD player, and phono preamp. It's what people would call an all-in-one music system. Basically, all you do is plug in speakers, and that's it. You can play from almost any source. So yeah, very convenient. Came out about 3 years ago, I would say, about 2022 they released this. So yeah, a bit of background about this device. Technics is the high-end audio brand of Panasonic. So if you guys know Panasonic, you know, famous Japanese electronics brand, they market a lot of their higher-end audio stuff under the Technics brand name. They've been doing that for decades, but more recently, I think they used to make like a whole range of devices, but recently, I would say about 10 years ago, Technics, it's just mostly used for higher-end stuff now, like starting from about 10 years ago. So like most of the Technics amplifiers and stuff that you'll see is mostly competing with brands like Marantz and NAD and Audiolab, like stuff that's fairly like expensive and geared towards audiophiles. So yeah, they don't really compete like in the lower end that much anymore. But anyways, decided to check this out because I actually got a pretty good deal on it. Originally, the MSRP for this thing was about $1,000 US, and I got it for about $750 from a guy who really wanted. I guess for some reason he didn't need it anymore, and it was still in really good condition. I got it for about $750. Saved a bit of money there, but yeah, still in really good condition and everything. And I was looking to actually have something that can replace a bunch of my my equipment actually, because I have like my Denon DCD-50 CD player, right? As well as my Yamaha WXA-50. Now these are pretty good. I've been using them for a few years. But hey, if I can get a device that can just do everything and potentially sound better, then why not? You know, I want to check it out. So yeah, that's the story behind how I got the C600 here. And I'm just going to go over a bit of the functionality of this device. So I've owned a few Technics devices before, but mostly limited to stuff like wireless earbuds and headphones. This is actually the first amplifier that I've experienced from them. And here's some specs about this one. So Technics is kind of unique with their amplifier. So they don't use Class A, Class AB, Class D. Most of the amplifiers you'll see on the market today that powers, you know, speakers and headphones, they're going to be one of these classes: Class A, Class AB, Class D, right? So those are different classes of analog amplifier circuitry. This one is kind of unique. They say it's all digital, so it's actually not a Class D amplifier, though some people consider this kind of like a Class D amplifier, but it's not really a Class D amplifier. It's Panasonic or Technics' own custom amplifier circuitry. They call it the Geno engine, which means jitter elimination and noise shaping optimization engine. It's an all digital amplifier, so any signal that comes in is converted to digital always. And some people may like that, some people may not. A lot of people, like audiophile purists, may prefer it be all analog or whatever, but yeah, hey, you know, if Technics, from what I've seen from the reviews, it sounds pretty good, and I'm willing to give it a shot, you know. Twin power supply circuit system. So even though there's only one power cord here, there's actually two dedicated power supplies, I believe. And there's one specific one just for the phono stage, which is really cool. Clean powered clock generator, built-in phonic equalizer. It's only compatible with moving magnets, but it still should be pretty good. It's powered by its own power supply, right? That's pretty interesting. Supports a bunch of different streaming services. Now, it's interesting because it doesn't use BlueOS or Yamaha's MusicCast, that's proprietary to them. It doesn't use Play-Fi. It doesn't use any of those services. I think it just uses Technics' own app, which I haven't really experienced before. I've only experienced HEOS, which is a Denon Marantz technology, and I've experienced BlueOS, and I've experienced MusicCast, which is Yamaha's technology. So I haven't really experienced using Technics' streaming app, but yeah, Technics has their own app, I guess, for that. Has Bluetooth, but it doesn't say what version of Bluetooth. Yeah, if it doesn't say what version, I assume it's actually not a very high version. Does not support aptX or LDAC, unfortunately. Only the basic SBC AAC. So I would say that if you're buying this like for Bluetooth, it's kind of an odd reason. Like there's way better amplifiers out there that you could buy for Bluetooth functionality. Bluetooth is just sort of like an extra that this thing has, but I would say most people who are using this are not going to be using the Bluetooth. At least they're not buying this for the Bluetooth, I would say. And what's cool about this one is that it also has room optimization software built in. It's called Space Tune. So that's Technics' own room optimization software. So that's cool, right? But again, I don't know how it compares to like Odyssey or Dirac, but it does come with room correction built in, called Space Tune. So that's pretty cool. That's a Technics proprietary thing. It's kind of like how Yamaha has their own, like Y-POW, I think it's called, and Sony has their own. So yeah, a lot of these Japanese companies just prefer to roll their own stuff, which is, you know, for better or for worse. So the power output is only 40 watts per channel, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but from what I've heard and what I've read online, the Technics Geno engine, it actually pushes a lot more power than what you would expect, given the power rating that you would find online. So yeah, 40 watts doesn't sound like a lot, but supposedly, you know, it can compete with Class AB amps, like double the power output. So we'll see, right? Okay, another thing is I want to talk about is the competitors to the C600, okay? So first of all, I want to talk about my Yamaha WXA-50. I've owned for a few years, and this is a $500 streaming amplifier. And I've compared this to a lot of amps that I've kind of reviewed over the past few months and over the past year. And yeah, this has still remained my main streaming amplifier. I've been actually trying to find something to replace this because this is getting a little bit old now. It's from 2016 originally. And kind of wanted to have HDMI ARC on it. And, you know, just see something, if there's something a little bit better that sounds a bit better and everything. So like trying to find some upgrades for it basically, and I still haven't really found anything that really suits my liking so far. This is essentially the third amplifier that I've got that could potentially replace the Yamaha WXA-50. I know it's crazy. I've tried the Cyrus One Cast, and that's a great sounding amplifier, don't get me wrong, but there's some usability issues with it. I didn't like the fact that you couldn't really see what input you were controlling. Like, it has this big knob on it, but then the inputs that you're controlling has like these really tiny, super tiny icons that you kind of have to squint to see what input you're on, and I didn't like that. I also didn't like the fact that it didn't really work well with my Google Home, even though it advertised itself as working well with Google Home, so I didn't like that either. So yeah, Cyrus One Cast sounds great, but there's some usability issues that I didn't like with it. Then the second device I tried to match up to my Yamaha is the Marantz M1, which is a really highly acclaimed device that's reviewed, like well reviewed online. The thing I didn't like about the Marantz, again, is not related to the sound quality. I think both the Cyrus One Cast and the Marantz M1 sound pretty good. Like, they sound very dynamic, very fun, very engaging. I do like the sound of both the Cyrus One Cast and the Marantz M1, so it's not related to the sound quality. It's more related to the usability. So for the Marantz, the issue was that I like to have the physical controls, and it had these touch controls on the front, which I didn't like. Didn't really have a remote control. Didn't come with one, at least. Didn't have an on button, I think. So that was one of the issues. I was like, you know, how do you even turn it off, right? Didn't seem like you even had an on button. Plus, you had to do everything through HEOS, which is Marantz and Denon's kind of proprietary streaming app software, which is a little bit annoying to use, I think. So the reason I didn't like the Marantz M1 and the Cyrus One Cast is not related to the sound quality, it's just more related to the fact that there's some little annoying issues I didn't like related to usability. And so for that reason, I still kept the Yamaha WXA-50 because it's just very usable. Like, the physical controls, the music cast, easy to use, it's got good I/O, just doesn't have the updated HDMI ARC, but whatever, it has good enough I/O and decent output power. It's not a lot. This is like 55 watts through 8 ohms, so not a lot of output power, but it's good enough to power my Martin Logans. So, you know, just kept that for now. And now we have the Technics, which is technically lower output power than the Yamaha. This is like 40 watts per channel, and the Yamaha is 55, but we'll see. This is you're gonna see the size difference. The Technics is roughly double the surface area and like twice the thickness of the Yamaha. And another reason I like the Yamaha is like it's so small and portable, right? Yeah, it's like double the thickness of the Yamaha and double the surface area. So yeah, we'll see what's going on there. But yeah, hopefully maybe this will sound a little bit better than Yamaha. We'll see. And we'll also see how the Technics app compares to the Music Cast app, because I do like Yamaha MusicCast actually. It's pretty good actually. It might not be Blue OS, but I would say after Blue OS, I think the MusicCast comes right after that in terms of usability. So yeah, also want to see if it can measure up well to my Denon DCD-50 CD player. So if the Technics does well, it can replace both my Denon and my Yamaha. So we'll see. We'll try to replace 2 devices, actually 3 devices, because it has a pretty decent phono preamp in it as well, I've heard. So maybe it can replace my X-Duo phono preamp too. We'll see. Anyways, let's go with what comes in the box first. So this is what came in the box with it. Obviously the power cord and remote. So yes, Marantz, are you listening? When I reviewed the Marantz M1, I was really kind of shocked that it didn't come with any physical remote. You had to use HEOS, and I don't think HEOS even had an option to turn off the Marantz. So, and the Marantz didn't have a physical off button, so I was like, how the heck do you turn off the Marantz, right? I couldn't even turn it off. So, anyways, physical remote. Thank you, Technics, for giving us that Marantz couldn't even give us. But yeah, it's a decent remote, right? You have typical buttons here: volume up and down, play, pause, stop, mute, dimmer. You got navigational buttons: setup, return, menu, info, select. I guess this is selecting input, CD, radio, and Bluetooth, and on button, of course. So yep, it's got everything that you'd probably want in a remote. So at least, yeah, that gives us a physical remote, which is what I think all pieces of hi-fi equipment should at least come with, right? Even if you say, hey, I don't like physical remotes and stuff like that, at least they should just give you one, and if you don't want to use it, you don't have to use it, but at least give us one, like, geez. Okay, and then the manual here, I think this is an optical cable, right? This is an optical cable? Okay. Or actually, I'm not sure what this... What is this? Okay. I'm actually not quite sure what this thing is. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was an optical cable or even a ground cable maybe, but I'm not actually sure what this is. What is this terminator right here? Yeah, I'm not sure. It looks like a ground cable or an optical cable though. It's like the wires are pretty thin. Then it comes with, yeah, this manual, of course. Software licenses and quick start guide. You gotta have that, right? And then QR code to download the app. I have to download the app to set it up later. These days, you know, everything comes with an app now. Okay, so here's the manual here. Technics. Okay, and yeah, basically it'll just tell you what all the different I/O does. You can already look this up online. Well, actually, it's pretty self-evident if you look at the back and the front, right? What all the buttons should do. Yeah, and then there's some like more instructions for connecting to the Wi-Fi and stuff like that, wireless LAN, and then playing back CDs has its own section as well. That's makes sense. And then Bluetooth has its own section, AirPlay, Chromecast, so it supports all that. Yeah, so through the Technics app, I believe it supports all your typical high-res services. So it'll support Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, Qobuz, and then in addition AirPlay and Chromecast as well. I don't think it has Roon though. I'm not sure on Roon, but I don't have a Roon player anyways. So yeah. All right, let's take a look at this player. This weighs about 10 pounds, so it's definitely not as light as my Yamaha. This is obviously a very light thing. I can just easily hold it with one hand, right? Not as light as my Yamaha WXA-50, but it's not really heavy either, at least not for something of this caliber, like an integrated amp that can play all these different formats. It's not too heavy, 10 pounds. It's all right. So I can take a look at what's on the front. So you do have a display here. Now keep in mind, this display is not the same display as you would find on something like the EverSolo. So these days I think the EverSolo DMP A6 is getting really popular, DMP A8, the upcoming EverPlay CD. Yeah, which by the way, I was looking at a few other devices as well, right, that could compete with this, like the Audiolab Omnia, that's like double the price of this thing, so that was like, you know, a little bit out of my budget. Then there was the Denon N12, So I reviewed the N10 before, but there's a newer N12 version, which technically does everything the Technics can do as well, including playing CDs and phono stage and everything. But the Technics seems a little bit more premium and higher end compared to the N12. So I went with the Technics still. And then, yeah, the EverSolo Play CD, yeah. So the upcoming EverSolo Play CD will be a good one to check out as well. And that one has like a much more substantial screen, but that one isn't out yet. So anyways, yeah, this one has just kind of like a basic LED display. It's not like a full IPS color display that will display your album artwork. So just be aware of that. I don't think Technics has anything like that yet. They're kind of old school in a way, in that sense, I guess. And then you have a USB input in the front. I think you can actually just plug in a USB drive and it can play files off of it. It's got universal plug and play, and it's got a headphone jack. So that's something that my Yamaha doesn't have. My Yamaha does not have a headphone jack. Okay, so on the front we have physical controls, which I do like. So we have the on button and we have the volume. I would have liked to have a rotary dial. I think that would have been nice to have like a rotary dial to control the volume. But at least these buttons are pretty solid feeling and they're fairly big. So yeah, like compared to the ones I saw in the Audiolab Omnia, like those are kind of small buttons for the volume up and down, so I didn't like that as much. Would have been nice if they had something like my Rotels. My Rotel has this nice rotary dial, or even the Yamaha's rotary dial here. Pretty nice feeling, but if you're gonna have just separate buttons for the volume, at least make them pretty solid and clicky. So that's what Technics did, which is pretty nice. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. So for the CD player, it's interesting because something like my Denon CD player right here, the DCD-50, it's like a just slot loading, right? You just put in your CD and it gets sucked in. So it's like a slot loading disc player right here. And that's the way how a lot of CD players do it. And another way is you have like a typical disc tray that comes out, right? That's how most CD players work. You either have a disc tray or you have a slot loading mechanism. But for the Technics, it's neither of those things. You have instead kind of like a rotating little cover right here. You have a rotating cover that will actually show the CD spinning when you're spinning it. So that's really cool, right? When you're playing the CD, you can see it spinning like this. And yeah, I think it's an interesting mechanism, but just be aware of one thing. If you're going to be buying something like this, make sure that you put it in a location where you can actually like put CDs in here. Because I know some people might be buying this for their media rack. If you're buying it for a media rack, like you might not have enough clearance, right? If you're putting the media rack, and then it's going to make it like a bit difficult to put CDs in here if it's like kind of top loading like this. So yeah, that's the only one. That's the only thing I have to say. Like in general, I like the design of this CD cover right here, so you can see the CD spinning. That's a cool design. But you also have to make sure you have like if you're putting on a media rack or something, make sure you have enough space for you to actually use the top loading mechanism. Yeah, and that's where I think a slot loading or a CD disc tray would be better, because it you don't need to have like space basically above it. But because of this top loading mechanism, you actually need to have space above it in a media rack in order to use it. So just be aware of that. Okay, then let's look at the back here. So this is the I/O for the back. So here you have your, this is an FM antenna. So if you want to listen to radio, you can listen to radio. This is for your phono. So this is your phonogram. So yeah, basically, if you're going to use your vinyl player with this thing, which I probably will, because I heard this phono stage is pretty good, then you put your ground wire here. You have a PC connection, which is interesting. I actually don't know what kind of DAC this thing might use. Because supposedly it's all digital. It doesn't convert to analog as well, so does it even have a DAC? I don't know, but interesting, it does have a PC connection here, so I guess you could use it with your computer, although I'm not. Your Ethernet or LAN connection right here, playback from your network wired. You have your coaxial in, your optical in, subwoofer out. It doesn't have pre-outs, by the way, but it only has a subwoofer out. Phono input. Again, this is a dedicated phono stage with its own separate power supply, which should be pretty good, I've heard. You have a line in, which is just analog, and then you have the power, speaker terminals. So yeah, power and speaker terminals, and that's it. it doesn't actually have too much I/O compared to something like the Audiolab, but it's fairly comparable to something like my Yamaha or the Marantz M1, I would say. My Yamaha does have pre-outs though, and it has the triggers. Yeah, I noticed that Technics doesn't have any trigger ins, but I don't use that anyways. But that's just something to consider, guys. That this thing doesn't have any trigger inputs. So if you want to have something that controls all your devices in your home at once, you normally would want to have trigger inputs, but Technics doesn't have that. Also, no HDMI ARC, by the way. That's kind of a bummer. It would be nice to have HDMI ARC, but I guess we'll just have to use the optical from my TV. But yeah, it would have been nice. I think the step-up model for this that doesn't have a CD player, the GX-70, that one does come with HDMI ARC. That's also more expensive. So yeah, I'm not sure why Technics didn't put it in this one. I guess they wanted to give people a reason to upgrade to the GX-70, I guess. But yeah, the GX-70 is almost double the price, I would say. It's fairly more expensive than this one, than the C600, but it does have an HDMI ARC, but it also lacks a CD player. So yeah, otherwise, from what I can see, the GX-70 looks like the internals are fairly similar to this. It has an HDMI ARC, but it doesn't have a CD player, and it's also substantially more expensive. So anyways, I don't know why Technics did not put HDMI ARC on this thing, but maybe it's to give people a reason to upgrade to the GX-70, who knows. But it's okay, I'll just use the optical here. So technically, yeah, it doesn't have anything over the Yamaha in terms of I/O. Pretty much I/O wise, it's like the same as the Yamaha. I guess it has the PC input, which I don't really use on here anyways, but it has that over the Yamaha, I guess. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to test this thing, of course. I'm pretty excited to hear how this thing sounds, because when I look online, there's not too many reviews on the C600 in terms of YouTube reviews, but there are quite a few people reviewing the GX-70, which is almost the same internals. I think the GX-70 has this other thing, this like linear power phase thing that it has. But for the most part, the internals are fairly similar to the C600, and a lot more people reviewed the GX-70 online. So they all said the sound was pretty good, you know, pretty solid. Andrew Robinson gave it high praise. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to hear this thing. So yeah, we're gonna test this out with my Martin Logan Motion B10 speakers, and then we're gonna compare it with the Yamaha WXA-50s, and also we're gonna put some CDs in here and then compare it to the Denon DCD-50s, and see how that compares as well. So yeah, that's it, guys. Stay tuned. Alright, so now I have the Technics C600 up and running, but I just want to make a note about how you set it up. The manual tells you to use Google Home to set it up if you have an Android device, but I found like Google Home didn't work for me. Just couldn't find it. So instead, what I did was you download Technics Audio Center. It's an app from Google Play Store. And then once you download that, this will actually set up the device for you, and you can connect it to the same network and everything. Once you have it connected, then you have all the shortcuts. So for streaming, you have radio, Spotify, Amazon Music, Tidal, Qobuz, Deezer, Podcast. I guess it is Roon Ready after all, so it does have Roon Ready and Google Cast. Then you can also choose the I/O input here: CD, USB, FM, coaxial, optical, PC, line, phono, and Bluetooth, as well as go to your music servers that you store on your NAS. Like if you have a NAS and you have music stored on it, which I do, then you can go to music server or music on this device, which would be my phone. And I can use Adapt for that, like a digital audio player, and I can play it from that as well. So yeah, it's fairly simple and easy to use, I'd say. Not too bad. Like compared to HEOS, I found HEOS a little bit complicated to use. And I've heard Play-Fi is just kind of like a mess. So yeah, Technics app seems okay-ish, I guess. Better than I expected. I guess I wasn't expecting too much. Also, for this interface here, it is a touchscreen, but only for these controls down at the bottom. It's not like a full touchscreen or anything. But yeah, let me show you guys the touchscreen on the Technics here. So basically, yeah, I'm gonna just turn it off here. Once you turn it off, you can have it in standby mode here, and I just have it just being a clock here. But then once you turn it on, yeah, it'll tell you the volume, which of course you can set the volume easily using these big volume buttons there. Then you can select your input. So right now I have it on Google Cast. That's what I'm going to use to demo the music. But you can select from all the inputs that you can select from on the app here as well. So CD, you can select that, FM, Bluetooth, USB, coaxial, optical, PC, line, phono, DMP, internet radio, podcasts. I actually don't know how different podcasts is. Is that separate input? Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, Amazon Music, Qobuz, and yeah, and Google Cast. So that's how you select through all the inputs. You can either do it here on the device itself, or you can use the app to do it. And of course you got play, pause right here, and stop, and you got left track and previous track. But if you go, you need to have the remote if you want to go into the setup. So you can go into setup, and here you can change the language, tone control, balance left and right, space tune, which is the room optimization. I put it on free because that's how I have the speaker set up right now. It's on free, but you can choose to either put a like wall if you have it, the speaker set up close to a wall, corner, in a shelf, and custom. So I'll just put space tune on free, but that's the room optimization software or room correction software that Technics comes with. Remaster, which is for MQA files. I don't have any MQA files. Sleep, you can have it set to sleep automatically after 30 minutes. I put it on 30 minutes. It's a default. I can set the clock here. Play timer setting, play timer adjustment, auto off. I have it auto shutting off as well. Auto dimmer, you can have it dim automatically. Illumination, you have different modes of illumination. I guess when you play CDs, you'll have illumination actually, which is pretty cool. Whoops. And you also have firmware update using a USB firmware version, initialization, model number, clock indication, which is 12-hour or 24-hour. Just set to 12-hour because you can set like, you know, PM, AM. East Asian character support, which is cool because Technics is a Japanese company. Remote control and network, which is where you do all the Wi-Fi setup. Opt-in autoplay, standby mode, standby display. I have it set to clock here for standby display. And yeah, beep. You can set beep as well, I guess. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different settings you can do with the remote control and the setup. So yeah, I would say that for the most part, yeah, I think that you have to have the remote to do this setup. But yeah, most of the common, you know, functions that you normally do, you can also do on the device itself. So anyways, that's it just for the setup and telling you guys a bit about what you can do in the device itself. Now let's listen to some music. Alright, so I'll be using my Martin Logan Motion B10s, which are my newer speakers I just upgraded to. I used to have the Martin Logan Motion 15s. So yeah, I just upgraded to the newer Martin Logans, and so I'll be playing using those speakers. And the app I'll be using, I'll just show you guys the app actually as well. So yeah, so this is the Technics Audio Center app. So basically I wait for that to detect it. Okay, and then I'll read my amp. Okay, there we go. Get into the app here. I'm actually going to use my Sony Walkman here because that's where all my music's stored right now. I'll go to music on this device. Okay, and yeah, like I said, overall, it's okay. Like, you know, it's not great. I still prefer MusicCast. MusicCast has a few extra functionality compared to this for Yamaha, right? But yeah, it's not bad. I think I still prefer it over HEOS even, because HEOS is just too much like garbage on the main screen. It's hard to find stuff. So for example, I want to play How Deep Is Your Love here. So I'll just search for that, and yeah, it has to take some time. Yeah, MusicCast would just be immediate, and actually so would HEOS too. This actually took longer than I expected, and I'll just play it like this. Okay, here we go. And it has to read it, which takes some time. And there you go. And that's the interface. Yeah. So anyways, I just want to show you guys the interface, but it does take some time. I think an alternative would be to not use the Technics app and instead just use something that has Google Cast, like Pulsar, for example. So I have Pulsar here, and Pulsar just has the Google Chromecast ability, right? So that's easier, and it's much faster because you guys saw how long it took to find that, right? So here I can just find the same music track, and it's just immediate, and Yeah, I can just hook it up with Chromecast. So I just Chromecast it to the Technics, and it should just work. Yeah, see. So I think I'd rather just use an app that has Chromecast support. So, anyways, let's test it out and compare it to the Yamaha WXA-50. Alright, so now we're going to check out the CD playback, and I have a copy of Seven Kagura Peach Beach Splash original soundtrack in here. I know it's kind of an odd choice, but it actually has an instrumental that I kind of enjoy, I guess. So we're going to listen to that. And yeah, once you close the cover, if you have it set to CD, it'll automatically start reading the CD. Then we're just going to select a track from here. And yeah, we'll play it. And yes, it does illuminate the CD a little bit, which is pretty cool as well. Alright, so now I have my Denon DCD-50. It's a $400 CD player, and I have it hooked up to the line-in input of my Technics. And yeah, we're just going to play the same song and see how it compares to the built-in CD player on my Technics. So yeah, this is the Denon. We're going to compare it. Yeah, same song. Alright, so that was it. That was my demo and overview of the Technics SA-C600. Let me know what you guys think. But to my ears, I think I finally might have found my replacement for my Yamaha, guys. Because this does sound really good. It's actually more powerful than I expected. As many reviewers have said online, the Geno engine, like, don't just go by the specs on paper. Yes, 40 watts doesn't sound like a lot on paper, but this thing actually sounds more powerful, at least, you know, to my ears, than my Yamaha WXA-50, which was 55 watts. Yeah, this is 40 watts, but it actually sounds more powerful. I think that to a lot of people, I think this is closer to maybe like a 60 watt, maybe even an 80 watt Class AB amp. So don't think of just like this 40 watts here. I think it might actually be closer to like a 60 watt AB amp. So yeah, it's more powerful than you think, given the specs. And overall, this sounds really nice. Very clean. I would say almost like a neutral, but very lean sounding sound. Very balanced. It's not as warm sounding, or some might call it, doesn't sound quite as like fun or lively compared to the Marantz M1 or the Cyrus Cast 1 that I reviewed before. But I think technically this sounds just as good. It's like just as detailed and everything. It's just, you know, a little bit more leaner sounding, a little bit, people might call this, you know, more a little bit reference, right? It's more neutral. But yeah, if you're looking for like a warmer, fun type of sound, more engaging and lively, I think the Marantz M1 or the Cyrus 1 Cast is, it has more of that. Or maybe the Audiolab too, I've heard, has more of that, the 6000A or the Omnia. But if you're just looking for something that's very clean sounding, very lean and neutral, then that's what this amp sounds like. Yeah, basically it's just a very reference sounding amp to me, to my ears. Definitely compared to the Yamaha WXA-50. The thing is, I felt this was like a neutral-ish amp as well, but the thing is, compared to the Technics, yeah, it just sounds like the mids and the bass just sound a little bit more congested with this amp. So it doesn't sound quite as clear. It doesn't have as the clean sound, as much clarity. I also noticed that the Yamaha is just a little bit harsher on the top end, on the high end. That's something I don't normally notice when I'm using the Yamaha, but just comparing it side by side with the Technics, that's when I start to notice that, yeah, the Yamaha sounds just a little bit more harsher on the top end. Whereas the Technics, yeah, it has that. The mids and bass don't sound as congested as on the Yamaha when I compare it. It definitely sounds like more leaner and cleaner. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I'll keep this device. It does it all, right? Even plays CDs, which is pretty cool. Has a pretty good phono stage built in as well, so it can probably replace my phono preamp as well. And I would say the only things I would like a little bit downsides of this device. One thing's the Technics app. Yeah, it's not quite as good as like, you know, BlueOS or even MusicCast. I haven't tried Play 5, but supposedly Play 5 is pretty bad. I think that, you know, compared to HEOS, yeah, HEOS is a bit more clunkier in my experience for the interface, but I don't like the fact that the Technics, when you load a song, it takes a long time to load, and you got to copy the library or something like that. I don't know why it has to do that, but yeah, that's a little bit clunky as well. So I definitely wouldn't use the Technics app. I think I would just use an app with Chromecast built in, like Pulsar. So I would just use that as well. So it's not like too big of a deal because I can always just use an app that has Chromecast in it. Another thing I wish it had is I wish it had pre-outs. It doesn't have. It just has a subwoofer out, but it doesn't have any dedicated pre-outs. So not having a pre-out is especially relevant for the CD player. Basically, if you want to use the CD player in this Technics, you have to use it with this amp. You can't use it with any other amp or receiver, which is, that's kind of a bummer, I think. So no digital out, no analog out on this device. So if you have like another power amp you want to use with it, you can't really do that. And oh yeah, one other minor thing is it would have been nice if they have support for higher res Bluetooth codecs like aptX, aptX HD, or LDAC. Would have been nice. It's probably one of a more minor complaint because I'm guessing most people who buy this device are probably not going to use Bluetooth with it. They're more likely to use higher res streaming services or AirPlay or Chromecast, but it still would have been nice to have support for aptX HD or LDAC. Yeah, otherwise, other things, I think mostly like HDMI ARC is a big one, I guess, as well. Like people are looking for devices with HDMI ARC, right? Especially if you're going to watch movies with it. So if you're going to watch like Dolby True HD, DTS Master Audio, Atmos, like anything with you know, those high quality uncompressed bit streams, yeah, this is not going to be able to handle that with optical. So you're going to need to have HDMI ARC to handle those bit streams. But to me, not a huge deal, because for me, I'm mostly going to be using this to like you just play like regular stereo stuff. So I'm not going to be watching like lossless movie soundtracks or Dolby Atmos stuff. I'm not going to use this with a surround sound system. That's what my Marantz Cinema 60 receiver is for. I'm not going to be using this as a receiver. This is yeah, just like a stereo streaming amp for me. But yeah, HDMI ARC definitely would be nice to have that, but the C600 doesn't have that. But otherwise, pretty much it. I don't have much else to complain about with this thing. It's got nice physical controls. It looks great. It's not all that heavy. It's still fairly compact. It's not as compact as my Yamaha, but my Yamaha is like, I mean, this thing is like a, yeah, it's really tiny, I would say, for an amp. It's still pretty compact compared to most amps out there, and has decent I/O. It just doesn't have the pre-outs or the HDMI ARC support. You know, that would be nice. But yeah, otherwise I think I can live with this. Yeah, so sound quality wise, you know, it's I think it's a clear upgrade from my Yamaha for me, to my ears, and probably competitive with the Cyrus one or the Marantz M1. It's just depending on what type of sound signature you prefer. Some people like that warmer, more engaging live dynamic experience than the Marantz M1, and the Cyrus one is better, but or the Audiolab. But I think for me this is good enough. It's just as detailed. It's just a bit of a more lean, neutral sound, and very clean sounding. So yeah, and the power might be another issue for people, but like I said, the power is more than you would think, given what you see on the specs. So yeah, overall, not too much to complain about. Just the Technics app, lack of a pre-out, no HDMI ARC. That's kind of the, and yeah, sure, like only 40 watts, but that's the only drawbacks of this device, I would say. CD player is pretty top-notch. Phono input's pretty top-notch, or the phono stage. Yeah, it's actually got a separate power supply just for the phono stage. And I like the size, I like the appearance, the functionality, and the controls and everything. Yeah, it's all in all, not too much to complain about, right? Not a perfect amp, but yeah, I also like, some people might like to have the nice color display with the album art and stuff like that. It doesn't have that, right? This is more of an old school display. At least it has a display, right? My Yamaha doesn't have that at all, but the Marantz M1 doesn't either, right? And people love the Marantz M1, and it doesn't have any display at all. So at least it's something, right? It's not the big, colorful EverSolo type display, but yeah, at least it's the you got some sort of display there. But yeah, that's really it. All in all, I think this is pretty solid. For the price, you can get it for $1,000 brand new. Not bad, actually. I got a discount because I don't really pay full price for my hi-fi stuff. But even at $1,000, I think it's very, very competitive with any of the other streamers out there, right? Especially if compared to any of the Cambridge Audio, Audiolab, Musical Fidelity, that stuff I feel is a bit overpriced. For that stuff is Cyrus. Like those British audio brands, I feel like it's a bit overpriced sometimes. Or any of the NAD streamers as well, and Nime. Oh yeah, Nime is really overpriced in my opinion. Looks great, but just really, really overpriced. Macintosh obviously as well, really overpriced, but I think very competitive with Marantz M1. Just it doesn't have, it's not as compact as the M1, doesn't have the HDMI ARC input, but otherwise, yeah, I'm satisfied with it. I like the Technics C600. I think this is a very, very solid all-in-one device. Yeah, I would get, again, I think the closest competitors would probably be the EverSolo Play CD that's coming out soon. I might actually get that one just to compare. That's going to be another interesting one compared. That's an $800 device that's even smaller and actually has all the same functionality and even more, because it has a full color display that displays album art and stuff. And then also the Denon N12 as well, which is a little bit cheaper, but it can do kind of the same thing with the CD player and everything. Yeah. So anyways, I think those are probably the closest competitors. EverSolo Play CD and the Denon N12, and both of them have the CD capabilities as well as streaming capabilities. So yeah, I think that to be honest, I think this is probably better than the Denons. It's just a little bit more premium, and yeah, it's just, I think audio wise, I think is a little higher tier than that Denon is. Not to say anything against Denon. Denon stuff is pretty awesome, but I think the Technics sound quality might be just a little bit higher than that. But the EverSolo would be a good comparison, because people rave about EverSolo stuff all the time. See them everywhere on YouTube. So I'm really curious about EverSolo actually. Might actually get one just to compare. What would you guys go for the Marantz M1, which is the same price as the Technics, except it doesn't play CDs. But arguably, right, you might like the sound a bit more, because the Marantz has a warmer, more fun, more dynamic sound, plus it has HDMI ARC. So there's that as well. But you lose the ability to play CDs. Plus the phono stage, yeah, the Technics has a better phono stage in my opinion. Oh, another thing to note is that the EverSolo Play and the Marantz M1 both are, I think, 100 watts per channel. So that's something to consider as well. They're both quite a bit more powerful if you're just talking pure wattage wise. But they're both Class D amps as well, I believe. So yeah, anyways, it really depends. I personally didn't think that this Technics was lacking any power, but some people might just look at the spec sheet and be like, yeah, the EverSolo, the Marantz is way more powerful, you know, just on paper. So there's that consideration as well. If you just want to have the peace of mind of, oh, it has more wattage on paper, then those would probably be better bets. Another thing that some people, you know, might or might not care about, but yes, the Technics is using a fully digital amp, and some people might not like that. You know, some people want to have their analog amps, especially Class AB power. Like the Marantz M1 is not even Class AB, that's still Class D. So same thing with the Yamaha and NAD as well, and a lot of other amplifiers. But if you know, some audiophiles do want Class AB power, and if that's the case, then you have to go for some more expensive amplifiers like the Audiolab 6000A Play, or the Omnia, or the Rotel S14. Those are all significantly more expensive though, but they're Class AB power. So there's that. Yeah, so what I mean by cleaner is that everything just felt like it had a blacker background, if you know what I mean. Just like less noise, less distortion, like better separation between the different frequencies, between the bass, the mid-bass, the mids, the highs. I just felt like there's better separation all around, sounded more refined compared to the Yamaha. And these are terms you'll hear audiophiles use when you get up into the, you know, you're trying to really A/B test something and you're trying to listen for the subtle differences. That's how I would describe it. To most people, you know, an amp is an amp. You know, there's not too much difference to most people, but to audiophiles, we have to look for the subtle differences. And that's what I discovered personally is, yeah, just cleaner, less distortion, more neutral, more refined, for lack of a better word. Yeah, the Yamaha just sounded a little bit more congested, especially in the mid-bass and the mids, at least compared to the Technics to my ears. And that's actually what I would expect, given that the Technics is double the price. The Yamaha WXA-50 is $500, this is $1,000. And this is newer too, right? This is 2022. The Yamaha amp came out in 2016. So that's what I would expect, and that's, yeah, that's what I hear. By the way, for the CD player comparison, that one is a bit more subtle. I think the Technics CD player may be a bit more, like, still a little bit more refined compared to the Denon, but it's a very subtle difference. Like, yeah, maybe like a little bit more detailed sounding, but I think that's a very small difference because I was using the Technics amp both times. So the Denon doesn't have an amp, right? So I had to connect it to the line in of my Technics, so I didn't hear as big of a difference there. But I'm just gonna say the Technics CD player is very, very solid. Like, this is as good as any, you know, dedicated CD player, I think, around the same price range out there. But it's the difference with the Yamaha amp that's a little bit more revealing and noticeable, right? Because the actual amp is different. So yeah, that's what I noticed. I definitely noticed the Technics, less noise, less distortion, more blacker background, more refined, better separation between the frequencies compared to the Yamaha. Yamaha just sounded a bit more congested, you know, especially in the mid-bass and the mids compared to the Yamaha. So another thing to consider is that the Technics also has this room correction software called Space Tune, which is pretty cool. My Yamaha WXA-50, which is an older amp, doesn't have that, of course, but neither does the Marantz M1, and that's a newer amp. And the Denon N12 doesn't have that either, and that's also a newer amp. And also, I believe the more expensive amps, even some of them like the Audiolab Omnia, or I think the Cambridge Audio Evo 75, they don't have them either. So the room correction, if that's a big deal to you guys, then the Technics does have that. I think not all streaming amps have that feature, so that's another thing to consider. So that's it, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What you think about the Technics SA-C600. Would you get one? Or would you, wait for the EverSolo Play CD come out, and then I think that would be a very competitive product as well. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. As always, thanks for watching.